And then what?
And then she said, I guess I'll take one more real quick.
I drink and I know things. That's what I do.
Welcome to Drunk on Dragons, a place where we drink on dragons while discussing House of the Dragon. I'm your host, Jamie G, Master of Laws, and I'm here with the Master of the Mountains, Magnum Mills, and we're going to talk about Episode 2, House of the Dragon, titled The Rogue Prince.
Thank you, sir. I am Magnum Mills, sipping on my Coors Light as mandated by my position in the realm. I don't have one of those cool balls that you put on, in your small console joint, so you're allowed to keep talking, but I do have the little topper tonight. I have that going for me, which is nice. Thanks for checking this out. If you aren't already subscribed, you can find Drunken Dragons on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the good ones, wherever you get your pods. We appreciate if you give us a good review. If we do something wrong, let us know. We'd like to fix it. We're on social media at Drunk on Dragons, and you can find our YouTube channel by going to JoeBlowFootballShow.com.
And please note that Drunk on Dragons is a full spoiler show. Everything in the damn realm we'll be discussing. All the episodes of House of Dragons, Game of Thrones, some spoilers from George R.R. Martin's works could come up here, but we will definitely not be focusing on the books. If a book spoiler that could impact the show comes up, we will let you know in advance. This is your first and final warning.
There be fire, there be dragons, and there be a little bit of drinking. And this is the Rogue Prince, episode 2 of season 1 of House of the Dragon, originally aired Sunday, August 28th, 2022 on HBO and HBO Max. This is directed by Greg Yatinis, who will also be directing episodes 3 and 10 this season. This is written by Ryan Condal, who also wrote episode 1. The short plot synopsis is there is turmoil within House Targaryen as a rogue prince makes a brash claim.
Before we get into specifics, let's each give our initial thoughts on this episode titled The Rogue Prince.
I was kind of low-key impressed by this episode a little bit because, the pilot episode had so much to do, right? You had to cleanse Game of Thrones, set up a whole new world. This immediately kind of felt like, I feel maybe a little bit like, was it the second episode of Thrones where they were on the road, on the King's Road? I don't know, I felt like, all right, this is the tone, right? This gave me a good idea of what an episode of House of the Dragon feels like. I'm not wild that it is lacking a little bit in some of the comedic stuff that I really enjoyed in Game of Thrones. But for now, I think they're doing a good job. And I think they set the tone. They've kept it fairly tight. There's a fair amount of characters, but it's not a whole universe that you need to know. There's Easter eggs there if you need them. Overall, I thought they did a good job with this, man. I was actually kind of surprised how well they did with this episode.
Mills, I am really happy with House of Dragon so far. I mean, I'm just episode 1, as you mentioned, a lot there. Episode 2, dude, I thought they kept it rolling good. I love what they did here with a couple of key things. One, Rhaenyra, that we know that we're going to be following her, but they made it so obvious and did a great job of kind of showing her stuck in this place where she knows she's the heir, she knows no one wants her to be, and she doesn't really know how to act. She's still the cup pourer, in the small council. So I thought that was really interesting to kind of be like, okay, she's the next like ruler of the fucking realm, and she's still pouring wine and clearly doesn't really have a voice at the small council. I also like that we kind of see some major choices being made here that are going to shape the rest of the season and possibly the series. And in one way, we kind of see Rhaenyra get closer with her dad, with King Viserys, and then at the end be totally split. And that decision at the end to wed Alicent is going to have ripple effects throughout the whole realm, throughout the whole series. Really, really, really good shit, dude. Loved how it started, loved how it ended, thought it moved the plot line along. It's not overly complicated to follow at all. So I really am enjoying it so far, Mills.
This episode they bring us right in with the full title sequence. We were wondering what it would look like. We didn't get one last week. Here, it's kind of a plus minus. We'll get to, well, maybe I shouldn't say plus minus, but one thing we were expecting and one thing we didn't, maybe. And let's start out with, what did you think of the sequence itself? Other people described it well. It has to do with the bloodlines of the Targaryen flowing through Valeria in various things. I'm hoping that there is more fire involved, maybe. I guess the idea here is we're going to see the blood flow through the various lines or regions, so to speak, similar to Game of Thrones with the map. Jamie G, how did you like the visual aspect of the intro?
Call me a homer here, but I absolutely loved it. I loved how it started off, kind of putting this thing together. I mean, let me be clear. Game of Thrones, like the intro, like that may be the best it's ever been done. Okay. But this was really good. I love how it not only visually does it look cool with the blood flowing and you see the different kind of, parts where they're spreading kind of pop up and as their reign goes further and further. But I love that there's the ability to add to this as this season and future seasons evolve through pointing out different things as the blood's flowing. So I think this has a ton of potential. It works so well with the theme. So I'm not mad that they're using the same thing. I think it's great. And Mills, super happy with this. I was very pumped about it.
I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think part of the reason is I don't know if I agree with the choice to use the Game of Thrones theme over again. I was really more on the fence, but then I listened to an interview with the man George R.R. Martin, and he talked about how he wanted Game of Thrones to be kind of like Star Wars as far as the universe, and very notably, all Star Wars properties generally start with the same fanfare. So in that aspect, from a branding standpoint, I think it makes sense why they did it. I just don't want the reason to be that they were like, we can't do better than we did with Game of Thrones. Because I really, Ramin Djawadi, especially as composer, and HBO in general, they've always done incredible, themes and opening sequences. And I mean, just even think like The Sopranos got yourself a gun. I mean, that's not even high. Something that costs a lot of money or whatever. So I'm hopefully optimistic. I want to see some more fire added to the blood, like as opposed to how we used to get the map, that moved around in Game of Thrones. I would like to maybe see we get dragons in this or something. I don't know, something to make it a little more unique, especially if they're going to stick with the same theme. That's all. Differentiate themselves a little more.
And I think they can build on it. That's what's cool about it. It's like a good surface that can be.
Yeah, as long as they build on it, I'm good with it.
I agreed. Look forward to that. And we see this episode quickly established that about 6 months have passed since episode 1. Daemon has taken over Dragonstone, and the crab feeder is terrorizing the shipping lanes around Stepstones. The series chooses to respond cautiously to both threats. Is this the right move or the wrong move? Mills, your opinion here. What do you think? Is he kind of watching his power weaken, or is he being smart?
I think he's being overly cautious, but again, maybe that's an artifact of him being kind of chosen by a council instead of being, granted by natural birthright. And we see throughout the episode, he talks about his duty to the realm, about having more kids and everything. I think it's really interesting that when he, says, "Oh, I'm going to send a letter and everything like that," and you get it right. Like Westeros has never been to open war with the Free Cities. He doesn't necessarily want to go there, even though the crab feeder isn't openly backed by the leaders of the Free Cities. He's probably in all realistic aspects backed by them. It makes sense, but he's hedging too much. And you see when Rhaenyra is like, "All right, let me take my fucking dragon. Like, we have dragon riders, we have nuclear weapons. Let's use the threat of nuclear weapons because there's no mutually assured destruction. They don't have nukes. Let's just bring our nukes over there and be like, hey, look at what we have." You get the idea that he's trying too hard to be like Jaehaerys, like the conciliator, like the guy who brings everyone together instead of being, decisive. And his indecisiveness, I think, is what's killing him, because you do see even Corlys, like when Rhaenyra suggested, he's like, well, at least she has a plan.
Rhaenyra had her suggestion to use the dragon riders as, it had one fatal flaw. It was suggested by a woman.
As a woman. Oh, that's right. I'm a woman.
And I think the show is going to do a really good job of driving home this like this patriarch of men rulers at this time in the realm, and how difficult it is for any woman to become, to get herself into a position of power. So I really like where they're going with that storyline. I think that was a good example. But for me, Mills, I think he's being a little bit weak here. I think he should have never have allowed his brother to take the army. I think he should have never allowed his brother to just kind of take Dragonstone. That was actually, technically the princesses. And the thing with the crab, it just feels like that should be a small problem that they could snuff out really quickly. And maybe they don't need to go all out war, but they use their power to kind of, deal with that without it being a huge thing. He solves kind of both instead of letting it fester. So I think he's making a bit of a mistake here.
Well, we're not going to talk about the next time on until late in the episode, and we'll give you a warning when we talk about that in case you want to bail out. But we do see the crab feeder a little bit here. The show tries to be building him up as kind of the big bad, maybe not, a Night King kind of deal, but, a fairly serious, at least one season villain or something like that. And we also see the dude's got a bad case of the grayscale, which we most notably saw with Shireen Baratheon and Jorah Mormont in Game of Thrones. I don't know, man. Like, dude's pretty crazy. He's got a cool hammer. What do you think of the crab feeder?
I like the scenes, again, some high quality gore. The scenes where you kind of see the aftermath of the crab feeder with the crabs coming out of the dude's leg who's still kind of like alive. That was really gross. Some serious gore. But I like towards the end of this episode when they kind of saw him standing there. It's like, dude looks a little badass. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like it was surprising. It's not necessarily the villain I think we're used to seeing in the Game of Thrones kind of realm and universe, so to speak. But I like this. He looked pretty cool. Reminded me almost of like something crazy out of like a Batman movie or something. Like, I don't know, but I do like it. I'm okay with him. I don't know that he's going to be like the big deal. That's going to be like the overarching thing. My guess is he's something on our way to finding out what that is. But for an immediate need for a villain, I'm okay with it, I think.
I basically agree with everything you just said. I guess I'll add that I don't think he probably, even if he's being backed by like the leaders of the free cities, my guess is he's kind of off his rocker a little bit. So even if he's ostensibly like acting for them, he'll like do his own thing when it comes to it. Whether, he might not necessarily try to achieve their objectives, he might have his own objectives in mind.
And the show's doing a great job of saying, okay, well, we've got to drive this wedge between Corlys and Viserys. And one way to do it and add to it is the whole, will you marry my 10-year-old? But that adds to this, and the crab feeder kind of creates the need. So I like that it's like feeding like a high pressure situation, but at the same time, it's kind of this cool, what the hell is that guy kind of thing. So curious to see what they do. The Game of Thrones is fully underway in this episode, and people are making straight up power moves. Let's break down the major players. Daemon Targaryen announced to the realm that he now controls Dragonstone and that he's the rightful heir to the throne. Oh, and yeah, he's going to take a second wife who is already pregnant, and they are going to put a dragon egg in the babe's cradle. All of this, of course, adheres to Targaryen tradition, and it's also total BS. It's a bluff. He declined to kill Rhaenyra when given the chance, but we see him considering an alliance with the Valyrians at the end of this episode. What do we think about Daemon's move so far? And Magnum Mills, may I ask, does he have any potential of being the big bad?
I think yes, he kind of has to be, right, because we've seen him have that darker streak. I'm very curious. They're playing it very interesting because it seems to me, at least, at the end of the day, he was just trying to get Viserys' attention. Like, he wanted his brother to come there, and initially, remember, he was going to come there. And Otto Hightower was like, no, sir. And everyone was like, no, sir. That's what he wanted. He was actually kind of surprised when Viserys didn't show up. I think he just wanted basically another chance at a showdown with his brother, and he was a little thrown, just kind of off his game when that's not what happened. And definitely thrown off a little bit when Rhaenyra showed up on Syraxis and was just like, yeah, dude, what's up, man? Like, you have a dragon? I have a dragon. Like, what's good, man? Like, why did you take the fucking egg that was supposed to be for my baby brother? That you wonder if that was personal, if he actually knew that and did it deliberately or not. I don't know, man. I thought he was more strategic. Maybe when we saw him kind of creeping and listening in on people, I thought maybe he had a grander plan. Now I'm convinced maybe he's more reactive than proactive.
Interesting take. I think he definitely wanted the king's attention. I also think this is part of his strategy. I think it's a longer term kind of strategy where he wants to, it's essentially, not to turn this into World War II, but if you look at what Hitler did, he essentially started doing one thing here, one thing here, just slowly breaking the Treaty of Versailles to see who would react and would anyone do anything. And eventually no one did. And he said, okay, now I can do whatever I want, and it's too late because now I've already made all these moves. And I think a little bit of that is true here with Damon, where he's trying to see how much can I do before my brother does something. This was a big thing. So, yeah, it's kind of like he chickens out of it and whatnot at the, when Rhaenyra shows up. But I think this was part of a bigger strategy for me, and I'm really curious to see kind of how this relationship with the Valerians shakes out. That was a really cool scene to end this episode.
I mean, if you want to make a World War II reference, I mean, stuff shook out for a lot of people here. Like Rhaenyra is over here, like
nothing is over until we decide it is. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Hell no!
So let's talk about the Valerians. Here we got Corlys, we have Rhaenys, and they make an offer to Viserys. See, that's a lot of things, but I nailed them all. I don't need to drink, but I will anyways. And they offer to marry their eldest daughter, Lena, who is 10 and 2, 12 years old, in order to fully join their great Valerian houses. Other than Otto Hightower, pretty much everybody tells Viserys, like, yeah, you should do this. This is a good match. It will help you. It is the politically correct thing to do. However, Viserys is unsure about that. Again, given Lena's age, he's just uncomfortable with it all. Ultimately, he declines their offer, which leads to House Valerian making the offer to Daemon for an alliance to retake the stepstones and whatnot. So what do we think of House Valerian here? The queen that never was, and Rhaenys and the sneeze dake in Corlys Valerian.
Big fucking balls. Okay, these are two huge power moves. For Corlys to go directly to Viserys and suggest this without discussing with the small council, this was a big deal. Kind of gone rogue, kind of, basically forcing Viserys' hand a little bit outside of his league here. Second off, when that doesn't work, you go behind the back of the king to his brother. This is really dangerous stuff. It leads me to believe something else is looming that we don't know about that would cause Corlys to kind of take this chance. These are two huge power moves. I love it. And I'll just say this, throughout everything Game of Thrones and now House of Dragons has done, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. Okay. When we're seeing Viserys they did it on purpose where you don't really see the daughter. You're kind of wondering, it wasn't that little kid we saw like last episode, was it? And then they finally put the camera there and you see it. And as they're walking through the garden, it's like, oh my God, that's the little kid we saw. It was horribly uncomfortable. I hated it, but the show does that so well, and it's supposed to be uncomfortable. But this is two huge power moves, in my opinion, by the Valerians.
I'll give you that. So you say the Valerians, they're your Nas IM pick of the week. Like now they're into big things. The Valerians, they're into big things.
Big things.
Yeah, we'll see. I might have to give my big things out a little bit later, because you want to be judicious with the giving out of the big things, much like you want to be careful with the uncomfortable places, much like the backseat of a Volkswagen. One last thing on House Valerian here, I guess, just Corlys talked about, like, this really impacts them more. The loss of the step zones, that's where they get a lot of their income and shit. So this hurts him more than any other house in Westeros. So not only will this hurt the realm, like this actually really hurts his house personally, hence kind of the extra motivation to get a move made here and to, ultimately when spurned by Viserys, go to Daemon. So, don't fuck with his money, basically. Like he talks about again, and we'll talk about the end of the episode, being kind of a self-made man, and now you've kind of fucked with his, his core business.
No, but it's one thing when you're Tony Soprano. It's another thing when you're, not, and he's not. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, we see that Viserys spurned the House Valerian in order to marry Alicent Hightower. This was probably the best case scenario for Otto Hightower, but even he seems surprised by the king's decision. If you were in Viserys' position here, what would you have done? Who would you have married?
There's a modern person, there's no correct way to answer this. Like, would I marry which like underage girl would I marry? The correct answer is none of them. I mean, the baller move would have been to go and take Damon's wife that he never sees or whatever, and be like, "Oh, yeah, you won't, you're gonna shun your wife." She's I believe, she another Aaron. I know he married an Aaron, but yeah, I mean that would have been kind of a baller move, or maybe like how like they have tournaments and everything for dudes, like have the female equivalent of a tournament or something. Do something cool or something like that to throw it up or whatever. But yes, probably not the. There's just no, I know it's a fantasy thing or whatever, but there is no real right answer to the younger children. But I think again, he probably did what he thought was like, because the Valerian child Lena looked very, very like she looked like she was like 9, dude. It was creepy.
It was gross.
That made
I hated
Alicent
it.
by default look like a better option, right? But realistically, the correct option from a political standpoint was the Valerian option. I guess Alicent was slightly better, but the even better option was just anybody else, probably.
My thinking is you got the entire realm and you're just forcing yourself into a decision between these two. Why? You haven't even thought about any other. This is one actually thing I didn't like about this episode is they went all in on this. Any other king would have been like, I'm going to start interviewing. What other alliances are there that we want to forge up? Who's got money? Who's got this? Who's got that? We haven't even talked about what's going on up north. Like, I don't like that they were so narrow and limited here with these two. The answer to me is neither.
I mean, where's the Grand Maester here being like, look, Your Grace, we have this the pull of Valerian steel where all girls of 10 and 8 at least may produce their wares or something and entertain you the most or whatever. Like, couldn't one of these maesters have at least invented the pull?
Woo! I'm Pac-Man Jones!
There's a lot more fish in the realm. Disappointed they didn't kind of search that out, kind of limited themselves to him like, oh, these are the only two choices. Like, dude, you're the king. You everyone is a choice. Like, are you serious? Like, I didn't like this.
To your credit, that makes the show feel a little small, right? Like the options come down
Yes.
to people we already know. Theoretically, like when you saw the Kingsguard thing where they all the various houses submitted knights for just submission to get in, why would not other great houses be like, oh, the king needs a new wife, here is
Yes.
our firstborn lasses and ladies, or pure of virtue and whatnot.
I think they really missed something
If he
with
put out
that.
the call, right? Like if if Viserys went on Tinder, he wouldn't have to even like, he doesn't have to pay for the premium, he doesn't have to super like all, he's just like, everyone is just just swiping the good way on Viserys.
Yes, there would be a lot of swipes on him, but I mean, it would have been, and it also would have been a cool way to tie in houses that maybe we know about. Maybe House Baratheon sends somebody. Maybe House Stark sends somebody. Like at least they didn't even if they didn't choose it, and in the end they still chose Allison. I would have liked for them to go through a better effort than have it be like, okay, yeah, you're right, I should get married. I'm going to pick right now between these two horrible options. It's just, to me, it was just ridiculous. But that show can't be perfect. That was one thing about this episode I didn't like.
I mean, this is a big deal though, right? I mean, not only that Viserys chose to marry Alicent, I don't even know that Otto knew this was coming. I know he was trying to get in good. He feels like this got there for him, probably as far as his strategy. I don't even think Alicent knew it was really coming, but how does this make Rhaenyra feel? I mean, her best friend is now going to be her stepmother. I wouldn't say that's worse than incest, but it's somewhere on the scale of not very fucking great, right?
Not great, Bob.
This is horrible for Rhaenyra. She literally, you know, we in an episode where we saw her kind of get close to Alicent, and we see it in the Grand Sap that she, you know, they're holding the arms together, they're having a moment. She is feeling like, who am I? I don't have any authority, even though I'm next in line to sit on the throne. I can't even speak up at the council. I'm pouring wine. You know, I want to make a stand. I want to be bold. I don't know what to do. All she has is Alicent, and now that's gone. So you're taking away literally everything from her, and I hate it for her, man. I understand, like, in a horrible way, it was better for her to watch her dad marry a 10-year-old than her best friend, who's 15. It's a no-win situation for her, and I feel very bad for Rhaenyra right now. Mills, can I just mention one more thing? The other thing with Rhaenyra here too is, don't forget, before she finds out that her father is going to choose Alicent, she's confronted by the queen that never was, and you can tell there's some beef a brewing, okay? And it's a thick pot of thick and chunky chili. It is all the beef. This is going to be a thing between them. And I just, now in the back of her mind, she's like, oh shit, my dad just spurned this family. I've got a thing with this lady who's kind of, we're going to have an issue. And now I've got to deal with it. So I think that adds to it just a little bit more.
Absolutely. And I thought that scene was great between Rhaenys and Rhaenyra. And shout out George R.R. Martin. We're pronouncing it all. Fuck you. We can handle it. Even on the little bit of the mining and whatnot. And, you know, I am Master of the Mountains. It was interesting. We got the line from Rhaenys in the trailer.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
I really enjoyed the fact that they did give us a scene there, and they made it kind of ambiguous to whether Rhaenyra was working her, she was legitimately jealous. But you do get the idea that the blow lands when she, you know, reminds Rhaenyra that, like, yeah, you're still the fucking cupbearer, right? Like, what has actually changed? Rhaenyra's like, oh, all these, you know, lords knelt to me, but she's like, yeah, they knelt to you when it didn't matter. Will they kneel to you when it actually does?
And now we have to ask the most important question. Was there enough drinking and dragons in the Rogue Prince?
Oh, man. This gets a passing grade because it's a perfect 50-50. There was almost like zero drinking. We got a couple of cool opening shots with the wine. That was it. I mean, for all the incredibly stressful things that happened this episode, definitely not enough drinking, but almost the perfect amount of dragons. The way they worked that showdown at Dragonstone, when, you know, you kind of see Otto comes in, he obviously is pretty quickly like, oh yeah, maybe I should have brought my dragon because Daemon has one. And then you kind of hear it before you see it when Rhaenyra comes out of the clouds, and then the dragons kind of, you know, they're kind of staring and they're doing little dragon calls at each other and everything. Perfect amount of dragons. So I'm going to give it just enough. But I really would. I'm hoping this is an HBO thing. Like, I love season 3 of Barry. Shout out to Barry podcast, but it got a little dark. This is a little dark. I know we're like Targaryen Civil War, yada yada yada, but I would like a little bit more comic relief here, even if you know, one of the dragons has to do like a bad Italian accent or something.
That would be funny. I would like to see that. I agree. I think they totally the right amount of dragons for me. The drinking, I would encourage more. After all, this is a drinking encouraged production. However, I did see them level up just a little bit here this episode. We get it, of course, when they're sitting at the Small Business Council, and then also, I'm sorry, the small council, small leadership council, and then also the at dinner with Viserys and Rhaenyra.
I like the idea that Westeros has a small business council. That's pretty great. I won't even make you drink for that one.
King's Landing, you know, they should have one.
You know, it's not a throne room, but we do have a trophy room. We got to put some stuff in it. So we're going to hand out some awards for the Rogue Prince, starting with that hot D. That's the hot dialogue, our favorite quote or piece of dialogue from the episode. I had a pretty easy winner here for me. I usually like the funny ones, but not a lot of funny ones this episode. So I'm going to go with Corus Valerian when he's kind of pitching Daemon. He says,
We are the realm's second sons, Daemon. Our worth is not given, must be made.
That's it, right? Daemon has to accept that now. Like, there's no way he is going to be given the throne. If he wants a throne, he is going to have to take it. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed both these characters. Even if it's an alliance or there's some backstabbing, I'm there for all of it. Jamie G.
Mills, for me, my favorite quote, it's not anything as profound as some of the other quotes in this episode, but to me, it did provide some comedic humor. Like, it gave me a little comedic presence, and it was something I couldn't stop saying all day today after watching the episode. And it was part of one of the best scenes so far in the series to me. And that is when Otto looks at his men after realizing Daemon Targaryen is such a loose cannon that he may very well cause bloodshed at this meetup on the bridge of Dragonstone. And you start to see the dragon out there, and Otto looks at his men and he says,
"All of you, sheathe the fucking steel."
I just love this. If I had a sword and somebody asked me to put my sword away, I would only put it away if they said, "Sheath the fucking steel." I mean, it's an amazing quote. It's hilarious. It's great. I loved it. I love the scene. It was done perfectly, really well shot. Just the way the freaking clouds start to part as Rhaenyra shows up. Loved it, but I love that quote from Otto.
That brings us to our hot fire of the week. This is sponsored by Dylon.
Because I spit hot fire.
And this is our favorite moment or scene from the Rogue Prince. Jamie G, bring it to me first, baby.
Tough one. There was a bunch of really good scenes here. A lot were kind of telling and meaning. For my runner-up, for sure, it's going to be that dinner scene between Viserys and Rhaenyra. I love this because, again, you're kind of starting to see he made her the heir, but he doesn't really believe that she has a place at that table and on that throne. You kind of see that through him cutting her off when she's trying to apologize about saying something at the small council. He's like, "You'll learn, you're young," basically completely taking away her idea. And she ends up, utilizing her own idea and kind of saves some bloodshed here with her uncle. That was a good scene. For me, though, I've got to go with the way that end scene was shot. You see the disappointment on Corlys as he's storming out of the small council meeting, and the next you see him kind of like talking by the fire. You don't really know who he's talking to. The slow turnaround, and just when you see Daemon Targaryen's face right at the peak of that conversation, I loved it. I thought the scene was so good because I don't know who's playing who, whether it's Corlys Velaryon or whether it's Daemon Targaryen. I don't know what the strategy is, but I know they both have one, and they're both trying to figure each other out and manipulate each other. Huge repercussions for this. Man, this was as good as it gets for me. I love the scene.
Absolutely. I think that's great. Did you like when you got that final scene when Corlys was talking and they did the slow pan to Daemon? I was like 99.9% positive it was Daemon. Did you think it was him too?
I did too. I just loved how it was done.
Because it didn't matter, right? You knew who it was, but it didn't matter because that's what you wanted, right? The show is giving us what we wanted. Even if it is a little bit fan servicey, it's in the best way possible. I have to give honorable mention to the scene at the Grand Sept between Alicent and Rhaenyra. I thought that was just a great way to develop their bond before they so expertly smash it apart at the end of the episode. But I will go with that scene on the bridge at Dragonstone is my favorite moment. The way it was shot, kind of the smoke and the dragons looking at each other, that was just fucking cool. And it had your favorite quote, so couldn't be half bad. And then we also, find out that Daemon's running a big bluff.
And we did see him sheath the steel. This is House of the Dragon, but everybody is playing the Game of Thrones. It's our time to pick our player of the week, our episode MVP for this episode titled The Rogue Prince. I'm up first here. Man, oh man, this is a really tough call for me, Magnum Mills. I guess I gotta go Alicent Hightower here. I mean, she clearly moves on up the ladder. I don't know how great of a ladder this is. Last week we see, Viserys have some strange I mean, thick layer pussing sore on his back. This week he's got to stick his pinky in fucking maggots to stop them from spreading. He's got some sort of rot. This doesn't strike me as a healthy man. Wouldn't surprise me if he's slowly being poisoned. Maybe we'll talk about that during predictions, but I do think that she clearly, Alicent Hightower, I mean, look, she's going to be queen. She is likely going to get pregnant with the child of Viserys. She just went from being a friend of the princess to the queen. She's my MVP for those reasons.
I have a hard time arguing with that. I'm just going to go to the other side of the family and go with Otto Hightower, because he really kind of like failed upward a little bit. Like he set Alicent off and hoped it worked out. It did. He went to Dragonstone with 20 knights to face a dragon. He should have lost, but he got bailed out. And then against all odds, Viserys decides to marry his daughter over Lena Valerian. Shout out Otto Hightower. I get a feeling this might be the only time that you can be my MVP, the most valuable player in the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. But you won this week, brother. And shout out to Reese Ifans, who says the word whore like almost as well as Frank Reynolds. Like, I just want to have them have a whore off.
One of the things I like doing most is banging whores. I go out and bang a lot of whores.
Would love to see that. Sign me up for that one.
Yeah, sign up for the whore off. And if you want to get chains, like back in the day, you go to the grocery store, you put your quarter in and get those are fake chains. We got real chains from Slick Rick and Mr. T. Not quite the Citadel, but it still qualifies us to give a grade to the Rogue Prince. And we grade each episode of House of the Dragon on a scale of 1 to 10 dragons. My turn to go first here. I believe I gave the pilot episode 8.5. I'm going to give this one 8.7. It built upon the pilot in a way that I enjoyed, and it made me excited for the next episode. I thought it was good, but not great. And I kind of appreciate that the show didn't try to do something super dramatic to bring us in. They seem confident in their storytelling. I like it a lot, and I want to leave some room for growth for the show. I'm hoping it's a grower, not a shower. Jamie G, who was your MVP for the Rogue Prince?
Man, oh man, I love it. I am right there with you, brother. I am going to give it 8.8. To me, it was even better than episode 1. Episode 1 was incredible for what they accomplished, just in terms of kind of a lot of shit to do. This one really started to move stuff along. I'm getting more comfortable. I like some of the things that they're kind of driving home. And now that we kind of see the first blood's been spilt here, we know kind of which way some of these plot twists are going to go. It has me really excited and pumped for episode 3 and beyond. And, short of them just kind of rushing the marriage thing and limiting and making it feel like a really small world here for us, where we're used to seeing this grand, robust, I would have loved somebody coming from across the narrow sea, for Christ's sakes, just to kind of give us more of the map. Maybe that's a personal thing, but that's really the only thing that I'm knocking this episode on. So 8.8 for me, Mills. Looking forward to episode 3.
They drew first blood.
You just described the plot of Rambo.
Yeah, that's the first from
It's
the first
the
one.
first
First
movie.
Blood.
Yeah, I think you're confusing your life with Rambo, bro.
That's not the first time you've described your life in the way of John Rambo's life.
Oh yeah, sorry, I spaced out of that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Rambo.
Oh, it's fine. Every once in a while, you space out on things, and what you don't space out on is fucking theories in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, because you can't. It wild as you get, whatever you want to say, it's one of our favorite parts of the whole thing. You craft the theories, you make the predictions, you wildly speculate on the next episode, the rest of the season. I just want to note here that we are going to talk about the next time on that was on HBO Max. After the episode was about a minute, it does clearly give away some plot points from episode 3. So if you don't want to be spoiled on those, check out now. Check us out again next week on Drunk on Dragons. And thank you for watching us for this episode covering the Rogue Prince. Other than that, we are going to get down on it and make some predictions, which will include that next time on Whatnot. And let's start with one that we don't really see in the next time on Jamie G, and that's Sir Kristen Cole. We see Rhaenyra's promote him to the Kingsguard, and he kind of fucks with Damon on the bridge a little bit, reminding him that he defeated him in the tournament. Like, what's up with this dude? Like, they would not be concentrating this much time on this bull if he wasn't going to be something, right?
Not at all. I love the kind of the quiet confidence, but the ability to kind of get cocky when you need to. Guy's got some cojones. And look, I think he's going to play a role here. My prediction is he's going to get close to Rhaenyra, and maybe that's a romantic thing, maybe not, but I think they're going to be allies down the stretch, particularly now that she feels like maybe she lost Allison.
Yes, it does feel like, even though she made the decision to put him on the Kingsguard because he had combat experience, to paraphrase Half Baked, it might be more complex than that, right? And what's up with Viserys, man? Because last episode we saw the shit on his back, and now this week he has the thing on his hand, and I'm almost positive that's from the end of episode 1 when he had that showdown with Daemon in the throne room, and it looked like he cut his hand on the throne. Here they're like treating it with maggots, and we see it like being kind of fucked up, and he drops the stone dragon, which Allison eventually gets fixed at the stonemasons for him. Is he all fucked? Like, to paraphrase Idiocracy, is this shit all fucked up, man? Like, is it just gonna fall off? Like, what's up with that?
It's definitely a problem, dude. I'm pinning it down to two things. Wouldn't surprise me if he's being poisoned, as I mentioned earlier. It also wouldn't surprise me if there's some deep-rooted shit where he's not supposed to sit on that throne, and that throne is letting him know, you're not supposed to sit on me. And that sore on his back, you can't. I mean, honestly, dude, you're gonna have a hard time convincing me he didn't sit on the throne and get sliced by something, and same thing on that pinky. It looked like he nicked it on the throne. I'm wondering if it's the throne telling him, you're not supposed to be sitting here. And maybe we learn that. Maybe there's something to that. I'm going with something like that, man. There is absolutely a bread being baked here, and the way it sniffs is sourdough to me.
So it's like definitely a kindergarten cop situation. Like, it's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's definitely not a tumor, dude.
It has been definitely a theme or even a theory in the books that the people that sit on the Iron Throne, like you said, if they're not worthy, they are cut. And this is kind of minor speculation, so give yourself 5 seconds to bail out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That maybe Alicent is like secretly like poison Jaehaerys and Viserys eventually, or something like that. Maybe it depends on how much you think she's a player. It's a theory, just putting it out there. But do you think that there's anything else going on with Viserys? Do you think there's any outside party fucking with him, or is this just somewhat natural or supernatural, but not caused by any one person?
Dude, I'm going a little column A, column B. I think that he clearly has enemies from within that think he is easily manipulated, and that's what's happening. But I also think maybe it's a little bit of the supernatural element of Game of Thrones, which we all kind of came to know and most of us enjoyed over the years. And that's maybe he's not supposed to be sitting on that throne.
I mean, it feels like a little like a Lethal Weapon 6 type of situation, but we'll have to figure that out. And in the next time on, told you all we're going to talk about this. We see that somebody brings a dragon in to fight the crab feeder. Do you think it's Daemon? Like, did he ally with House Valerian to wipe out the crab feeder and the Triarchy? Or is this something else? Like, is this not Daemon? The show is doing the classic thing, the HBO thing, where they show us something in the trailer that's, this is obviously what's going to happen, but lo and behold, it's not.
The easy money is, it's Daemon. He took the bait. He's no pun intended, but he took the bait and he's going out to the sea and he's going to do this, or he's going to do this to spite his father, his brother, whatever. But I'm going to say no. I'm going to say this is actually Rhaenyra, and I'm going to say she got a little taste of being bold, and she's going back and doing it, not necessarily to defy her father. She doesn't care that she's defying him. I think there's a bigger reason. Something happens. She feels like she has to. But I think it's her continuing to do bold things to prove herself as a player.
I like that kind of because you see her kind of go off on a horse and have like some kind of quick interaction. Like maybe Damien's in trouble and then she bails him out or something like that. Especially because, we're going to talk about this in a second here. We find out that, we've jumped a little bit in time. Alicent has married Viserys and produced a male heir. So that makes a lot of sense that maybe Rhaenyra wants to reassert herself, right? So, any further thoughts on that, or the fact that we see that, pretty soon Rhaenyra is going to have a stepbrother via her best friend, who's now her stepmother.
Yeah, and it sounds like the name is going to be Aegon, and we know that name to be written in all the books for all the lords to see. I mean, this is a big development to say the least. Yeah, I think it's gonna. I mean, this has to cause Rhaenyra to rebel a little bit here, right? I mean, we saw in this episode she stood up to her aunt and the queen who never was, Rhaenyra, and said, "Look, that was them denying you. I had lords and knights swear to my feet and pledge allegiance to me and bend the fucking knee." Okay, so she like kind of still believes it a little bit. Another thing coming true that people warned her about to take away the power. She's got to rebel here a little bit, doesn't she? She has to.
I mean, that's interesting, right? What is Rhaenyra's next move? Everybody else seems you pretty obviously to have a place where they would go initially. Rhaenyra is the wild card here, right? Like she's Charlie in the back of a van. She's a dragon rider. Wherever she goes, like she could be the U.S. coming late into the war, so to speak, that swings the balance of the power. Where is she going to go? If it's against, Alicent and her father, what does that mean? Does that necessarily mean a team up with Daemon, or could that push her, to the Valerian side if they're not teaming up with Daemon, or maybe she just wants to stake her own claim? I really enjoy that there are a lot of ways that this can go. Like they have left the pathways open. Again, I if you've read some books and whatever, you might have some idea where it's going. We're being fairly nebulous here, but it's fun to watch, man. Even Game of Thrones, like I fucking knew the Red Wedding was coming, and I loved fucking watching it. So I don't really want to overly say anything here, but if you're an era man, what's next for you, man?
Man, this is really tough because she keeps getting beat down here. I think it depends on, they haven't really shown us if she really wants the Iron Throne or not. So we don't really know. Is that something that she like needs and believes that she has to have and believes is hers? If so, then you kind of know that she's going to do anything she can to kind of maintain that. But is she someone who's going to accept the way of things and just know that it's not hers now? Even though in this last episode, her father told her no matter what, he is not going to take away her as his heir.
Yeah, I call bullshit on that though.
100%. We all call bullshit on it. But you see what I'm saying?
You have Aegon, and he, in the next time on, like says, "Oh, now you need to marry." I just wonder, like, what would the marriage be like? What's the, because you get the feeling, right? Maybe she would flip and like, what is the marriage I could make that would most hurt my father? Like she goes the other way instead of helping the house. She's like, what is the most, dramatic lashing out thing I can do via marriage?
I don't know that I know enough yet of what that is, but yeah, I think there's going to be some sort of rebellion here.
But you're there for it, basically. You're like, yeah,
100%,
rebel,
100%.
Yeah, because I think that we're going to get a bit of a time jump soon, but we did hear some discussion about Vhagar, who is thought to be the oldest and largest living dragon still out there in the world. Been missing for a while. She was part of the original Aegon's conquest. We hear a word here that she might be somewhere on the coast of the Narrow Sea, made a bit of a nest near Driftmark. They don't bring this up by accident, right? Like, just give me, like, we have like basically like the big dragon out there still. They don't mention this without reason. Like, what's happening with Vhagar? Like,
I don't know, but I'm intrigued. I can't wait to find out. I think at some point we're going to have to see dragons maybe fighting dragons. You know, they didn't necessarily hint at it at that scene at the bridge at Dragonstone, but the feeling was in the air. You know, that maybe, just maybe, dragons fighting dragons isn't that far-fetched, and it feels like we're kind of on a collision course to seeing that at some point. So in theory, whoever controls the biggest, baddest dragon wins everything. So there's a lot of intrigue here for me with this. I love the folklore, the myth of it. Can't wait to see it. I mean, shit, these dragons now that we're seeing are large and really impressive. Can't wait to see kind of the big bad, so to speak, of dragons.
Yeah, I know enough that I'm not going to comment on this one, but I do want to say that we actually heard Vagar brought up a couple of times during Game of Thrones, so you know, not necessarily new to the canon, so to speak. And speaking of the dragons, Jamie G, one last one here. We saw that dragon egg that, you know, Damon kind of just, you know, did a little bit of a shovel pass to Rhaenyra with. What's up with that, right? It's got to be something.
Definitely got to be something. It was clearly important and meant something to both of them. That pass, I mean, it looked a little, you know, Brett Favrean. I mean, just kind of the one-handed as I'm turning away. That was pretty cool. But, you know, we saw what the dragon egg meant in Game of Thrones. I think in House of Dragon, the dragon egg might mean something else. And I'm curious to see them develop kind of the storyline around the egg and the importance of the tradition in the Targaryens. I think, you know, it looks like we're going to get more of that.
Well, we knew that that was the egg that she had declared was going to be for her brother Balon before he died or whatever. So it, like, she took it personally that he stole this particular egg, which was also the egg of her dragon. You know, it was one of those things where it seemed a little bit personal, maybe, considering it looked like Damon's, you know, all he was trying to do was draw Viserys out. But, you know, maybe subconsciously he was also trying to draw Rhaenyra out. You know, maybe he was negging her. I forget how, you know, it's been a while since the whole.
Maybe he was egging her on a little bit.
He was negging the egg, dude. Don't neg the egg.
If you want to listen to people talk about House of the Dragon, you literally have hundreds of killer options. We definitely appreciate you guys checking out our show. We love talking about all things Thrones and discussing it with people from all over the realm. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be here all season to break down every episode of House of the Dragon with drinks and dragons. Thanks again for checking us out. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps us, but most importantly, it helps other people find our show and the rest of our kick-ass content. Speaking of kick-ass content, Magnum Mills, do everyone a favor and tell the audience where they can find all of our awesome and completely free kick-ass content.
I mean, you can't be free, right? This was Drunk on Dragons again on all the popular podcast applications, as it gets called these days. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the good ones, on social media at Drunk on Dragons. You find our YouTube channel at JoeBlowFootballShow.com. Joe Blow Football Show is on social media at Joe Blow Show. If you check out our YouTube channel, we covered a lot of cool things. We covered, you like Netflix stuff, we had the Ozark, we have the Peaky Blinders, you like prestige stuff, we covered Better Call Saul, we've talked about Barry, you like fun, we got Always Sunny in Philadelphia on Nightbot Cometh, lots of stuff. You should check it out. It's a good time. We really appreciate you checking out Drunk on Dragons, because you can only do this if you're drunk on a dragon. I am Magnum Mills. He is Jamie G, and you don't have to drink, but if you're going to drink, it might as well be on a dragon or a dragon.
We'll see you soon with our coverage of episode 3 titled Second of His Name, which will drop Tuesday, September 6th.
Thanks again for checking us out. Drunk on Dragons is an unofficial show. We are not in any way affiliated with House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin, HBO, or Warner Brothers Television. The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not reflect the views of any other persons or entities. You can contact us at drunkondragonspod@gmail.com. Please remember to like and subscribe. We'll check you out again next time for more drinking and, of course, more dragons.